Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the Keim Report wherever you get your podcast. You're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media. That's Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Today, I'm joined by Anthony Boone, who is Sam Howell's offseason quarterbacks coach. He's been working with Howell since Howell was in the 9th grade. He clearly knows him. Obviously knows what he's been working on this offseason. He goes into detail on all that stuff and kind of gives you some more insight into who Howell is and as a quarterback, as a competitor, as a kid, as a worker, all that good stuff. So I think you'll enjoy the interview with Anthony. I talked to him earlier this month and wrote a story on Howell and just kind of where the things he worked on in the spring to kind of get ready for this opportunity. That story ran on ESPN.com last week. I'll have a story coming up soon, sometime over the next several days or so, on Eric Bieniemy and the early impressions that the Commanders have of Bieniemy, all that good stuff. It's more than just the yelling, folks. And when I talked to Ron Rivera about him, he said, and I agree with this, his yelling has a purpose. There's a plan behind what he does. So I think it's, when people get caught up in the yelling, and even when I talked to Rivera, I would bring it up, like, you hear the yelling, but there's a purpose behind the yelling, and it's not just yelling. It's way more than that, folks. If it was just that, I think he would be in trouble and they would be in trouble. But that's more about the accountability and the demands he puts on them to get things right, which as I've said a long time, that's very much needed. Anyways, look for that over the next several days on ESPN.com. Also, just one little nugget of information. The Harris Blitzer Group, along with Arctos Partners, which is a private sports equity firm, they have become minority investors in Joe Gibbs Racing. Now, it's really, that's a kind of a nice little tie-in here, but I think what it really suggests is Gibbs's basically his stamp of approval of Josh Harris as a Commanders owner. Gibbs is is friends with Harris and has kind of served as an advisor to him throughout this process, really what he's getting in the franchise in the city. Not that Harris didn't know about the city. He grew up here, but Gibbs, I was told several months ago that he has served kind of, like I said, as almost a de facto advisor to Harris in this. And the one thing about Gibbs is one reason why he's been a Hall of Fame coach in 2 sports, because he knows how to pick people and who to surround himself with. So to me, I would take that as a good sign that he's giving him a further stamp of approval to let him invest, to have him become an investor, a minority investor of his group in Joe Gibbs Racing. Gibbs will also be an advisor to, has become a limited partner in the Harris Blitzer Group. Now that's separate from the Harris Group trying to buy who obviously just needs final approval to buy the Commanders. Anyway, just thought you need to know that. You want to know more about that, go to ESPN.com. I have a story up there on all that right now. So that's it for me, folks. Summertime. There's not a lot to talk about. I will keep pumping out podcasts, though, over the next several months. Very soon, I'm going to start going to two a week because, listen, there's just not as much to talk about. If there's news that happens, then we'll adjust and go to more. So with all that being said, here's my conversation with Anthony Boone, Sam Howell's offseason quarterbacks coach. You'll get some good insight from Anthony.
The adventure park is ziplining through the trees. It's climbing from platform to platform. It's even an axe throwing competition with your friends. But what the adventure park really is opportunity. Reconnecting with friends and family, accomplishing a challenge, and making lasting memories. So book your visit today and choose your own adventure.
Well, first, Anthony, thanks for coming on. But I want to start with, your relationship with Sam. You've been working with him for a while now. First of all, how long has it been, and how did you two connect?
So I've been working with Sam since his freshman year in high school. And the way we connected was our mothers had the same job in the high school, in the school system, in the same county. So they met one day as like all the special kind of course teachers, there's one in each school. They're all in the same curriculum. They got together as just kind of, we're all speaking the same language. We're all kind of, for the same message or anything that we need to work on. And the conversation of Sam came up to his mother, and my mom was like, hey, my son is, Anthony Boone, and played at Weddington, which is the rival high school that he went to. And don't let him tell you, but our high school is better than his high school. And long story short, my mom came home one day and, she's like, hey, I got Sam Howell's mom's number and she wants you to work with him and, kind of set up this, our moms, which is kind of, a crazy thing to say. Our moms honestly set up the relationship for us. And, ever since then, we've been, pretty much inseparable, but, hold each other accountable and, rely and trust each other.
What is it? What has stood out? Because obviously you've worked with him that long. There's something you really like about him. What is it that jumps out to you about Sam?
I think Sam's just constant need to be coached and, how genuine he is and, how, it was really just an instant click with, with us. Just kind of, felt the same, same thought process as far as like what we're trying to get done, what we accomplished. And obviously, he leaned on me early on in his career. It still kind of does, but early on in his career, just, because he's in the play, he's trying to get to the place that I was at. And, I was obviously somewhat successful. So, he kind of gravitated to just, wanting information and wanting to, how I studied film, how I carried myself in the locker room, how I handled relationships with, with how I handled relationship with teammates, how I carried myself in the offseason when I came home, somewhere that I was never at. And, now for me, it's, he's teaching me, along the way as well. And, I'm still, on him about, mechanics, and he always comes to me for, hey, what do you think about this as far as my drop? Or what do you think about this as far as my posture or my arm path or, just little things like that I've seen obviously from him since he was a, young kid.
Right. And I'm going to get into the mechanics in a minute, but you did play, you had pro experience.
Yes, sir.
Obviously played at a big time college. So like, what is it what did you know what it takes to get there? So when did you start to see in him that he had what it took to reach a certain level?
Really early on. I mean, obviously, like, he's a young kid, bigger than every other kid at his age. He's just a strong kid. You look at him, you're like, man, like this dude does not look 15. And obviously, the way the ball came out of his hand was equivalent to when you look at him off the hoof, like, okay, wow, it's a big kid, big, strong kid. And then his playing style, he was a tough kid, very physical, a little unorthodox, wasn't going to like wow you with speed or wow you with something. But, when it was time to make a play, he was always making a play and you're like, dang, man, this kid's like, he's got like it, like this, he's always doing it. And I don't really know exactly what it is, but when I turn the tape on, when I go to a game, it's like, yep, that was it. And he does it, consistently. And, I think, just seeing how humble he was with all of that is really probably the coolest thing to it all. I mean, he's, obviously done some tremendous things in the state of North Carolina, breaking lots of records and, probably being one of the biggest quarterback recruits out of the state.
Yeah.
He really, embodied it and kind of wore it. And, it was never like the moment was too big. It was never like it was a humongous deal, but it was never like, dang, like he's undervaluing what was going on around him. And he just was at a young age, just mature enough to balance that. And, you never, things never wavered for him as a young kid. And it's the same person he is today.
He seems pretty humble.
Yeah, he is.
And you said one time that he's the most behind the scenes guy you've ever met. What did you mean by that? So,
I mean, he's the guy that, is the epitome of all of those memes. Like, oh, well, it's what's done in the dark. It's what you do that people don't see. I mean, he embodies that. I mean, that's, it's to some people you may think that's a sacrifice or, oh, he's sacrificing this, he's sacrificing that. For a guy like Sam, it's like, it's not a sacrifice when this is who I am. This is what I do. This is what I want to be. So, he's that guy. And I think, for him, it's going to make him, it's going to make it hard for people in that organization on that team not to like him and not to want him to do well. And, not to want to play for that guy. Cause he's going to do all the things that a quarterback's supposed to do. And it's genuine. It's not to gain likeness. It's who he is as a quarterback and as a person. And, he's been that way since he was 14.
And you've obviously worked, right. And you've worked with a lot. I mean, you work with Daniel Jones, I think Drake May as well, correct?
Yes, sir.
So you work with those kind of guys. what are some things when you talk about behind the scenes? What are some little things that Sam would do that did separate him maybe from some others?
I think his preparation was crazy. I mean, I'm talking about like he used to FaceTime me and FaceTime or call me. This be 11, 12 o'clock, right? And we would just be talking football. Like, hey man, like what's the game plan this week? And what you guys trying to do? And he's like, oh man, this team's learning a lot of bracket quarters, and we get in this set, we're gonna look at attacking them here and attacking them there. And that was something that like I know for a fact, as a lot of kids were on social media, I see their posts and they're saying they're hanging out or they're in their beds, and it's like Sam's freaking calling me leaving the facility at 11 o'clock, and he did that as a freshman. And it wasn't
Freshman in college.
Yeah, I mean, he did that. He did that in high school too. Him and his dad would stay up late and watch film, and but it wasn't one of those things where you had to tell him. It's just he just did it. It's one of those things where like he read it online that this is what quarterbacks do, and this is how to be successful, and he took it to heart, and he's like, what, like this is who I'm going to be. So he's definitely a student of the game. Obviously, in that league, it's going to be it takes reps to really gain that knowledge. I mean, I think a lot of guys in that league are smart when it comes to playing quarterback. I just think the best ones are the ones that have experienced a lot and seen a lot of different defenses and seen tells and tendencies, and so I think in that regard, he's going to grow, and he knows that, but he's going to definitely give himself the best chance he possibly can in his preparation and study to make sure that he is as prepared as anybody who's only been in the league for 2 years can be.
Where did you see the brain show up most? Like what kind of things would he say? Was something you do, something you'd see on film?
I mean, we can just start with it. He was a 4.0 kid out of high school. He got a 4.0. I mean, it doesn't matter what school. Yeah, I mean, he's a kid that's going to keep it. He kept his grades up, and things just came easy to him. But I mean, he things that really stuck out was just first time we got together, like maybe in the film and boardroom, and just in high school, just talking about, hey, this is a 3 technique, this is a 2 technique, this is a shade, and like it was one conversation, and then from there it was like he knew it. It was law. Like I know exactly what, when I say, hey, this and this, like he knows exactly where guys are lined up, and that's he, like I said, he really just as early on he just embodied what it is and what it means to play quarterback.
So what are the things that you focused on this offseason with him? And was it, let's start with that.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing for him for this offseason is what we kind of talked about was, physically, you're obviously in the league. So you're, physically you're able to make all the throws and do these things. And I think Coach Bieniemy is going to do a great job of just making sure that, I feel like, and obviously I'm just a spectator from this point of view, but I feel like he does a good job of just, knowing his personnel and, what makes them successful, and what helps that team go. And he's not going to try to beat him into like, hey, you have to be this, and this. So I think for him, just really, like, I think the biggest thing for his growth this offseason was just getting that rapport with his guys. And I told him, I was like, hey, like, you got to have Dotson, you got to have Terry here, you got to have those guys, around. You guys got to be working together, and build that trust and understanding and feel, and just getting as many reps as you possibly can. So he actually spent more time up there, just watching and talking to the guys and just being around those guys and building that relationship, than normal. But this offseason, the big thing we just kind of worked on was just controlling his base a little bit, make sure he's not drifting in his drops, and making sure he's he's clean through his hitches and his eyes are in the right place. And he's creating good alignments, and when he can't create alignment, he's got the ability to be flexible enough to create off platform throws and awkward angles that people see all the time, and there's flashes of it that were kind of not overhyping, but it's made a big deal, but it's kind of part of the game and been happening for years. It's just now it's a big deal, and that, and just staying as sudden as fast as we can, as far as our arm path, getting that ball from the normal carries to out of my hands, and then just his his posture when he's throwing, just not leaning.
How much did you work? Like, how many days a week would you guys work out together, or would you have them work out?
I would say, I mean, we'd probably be 3 days a week, maybe like a back-to-back day and then a day in between, and then like a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, or a Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. Usually be, intermediate to quick game day on the first day. The second day would be usually, some play action, bootleg, deep ball work with some long tosses after for like arm strength and arm health. And then that Friday or that third day would be usually like red zone, just kind of working different red zone throws, different, throws you're going to be asked to make, and different drops and different reads. Eyes starting here, working here, eyes starting here, working there. Just trying to, obviously this offseason was a little different, just not knowing, early on, just not knowing, who the guy was going to be. So, early on was just like, hey man, look, this is a good time for us to just be, as mechanical as sounds possible. Obviously they're going to be throwing these routes and these concepts. It's just going to be about verbiage at some point, right? Figuring out how they want to call it, or what they want to disguise it with, or what they want to pair it with, and so this offseason was really just getting back to the basics and moving and playing fast, and getting ready to be the guy for that organization. Which like I think he's gonna make a lot of people happy in that building.
And I think they're getting there, because I think they're pretty excited about him. But like, so were you working out in Carolina? Was this out in California? I read that he was going to go out there as well. Or was this back in Carolina that you worked out with him?
Yeah, so back in Carolina, worked out with me. We were out in California for his draft prep.
Okay. Oh, okay. That's what that was. Okay. Yeah. So when you're working on that, because one big thing that they've seen to change over the course of the year is the footwork, and kind of marrying it to the scheme they have, but also just getting to this level. So how much did you work on that, and what kind of things did you do to work on that?
So honestly, we just unfolded probably, just looking at the league, like different guys that do different things, whether it be left foot forward, right foot forward, feet equal, straight to a drop, punch, kind of a shuffle, right? We looked at basically all these drops and talked about all these concepts, and talked about, hey, if you got this quick game concept, you can throw this same throw 3 different ways, right? 3 different footworks, but also like marrying it to where there's no tells, because obviously at the next level, guys are smart. So where there's no tells, where like, if I'm throwing it this way to my left, I can't switch my feet going to the right. So really, I got to just figure out like what I want to do as far as if I'm left foot forward, I want to take a punch step, or I want to go right to a drop. And then marrying that to every route concept, both right and left. And that was, it was honestly trial and error, what I'm saying? And I think, early on, because obviously for us, it was trial and error, because the way he was asked to drop at Chapel Hill was, they were, Coach Longo wanted them to do a back pedal drop. So
okay.
Everything was back pedal drop. And for him, and he thought, not thought, but for him, it doesn't give defenses tells of whether you're working right or left. And, for him also, he feels like it, helps, guys, see the whole field instead of turning sideways and blocking it off. So not here nor there as far as like whether thinking like it's more right or wrong. I think it's innovative. I think a lot of people have adapted it. And I think it's, it's worked in a lot of situations, but obviously there's not a lot of guys in the league that want that footwork. So that was the kind of the not issue with it, but you really had to just kind of find, we really had to explore and find a new identity. So early on, we just always be like, hey man, look, we're gonna explore. Thank you. We're gonna explore left foot forward punch step today, or we're gonna explore plant throws. And I think that was just kind of like it was fun in a sense, but also it was it just took a lot of reps of just, hey, we're throwing a quick out here to the left. I'm good, thank you. We're throwing a quick out to the left or quick out to the right, and hey, throw this one off slide, throw this one off punch one, throw this off rocker, right? And it's just like, biggest thing is like, for him, it's all a feel. Like how, like, which one felt the best, which one felt the most comfortable, and then we throw it to the right, and then we throw it to the left, and it'd be a different drop, and it'd be like, all right, well, let's go back to this drop to the right and see if we, if we can find some comfort in there, or like talk through the footwork of it. But I really think a lot of it was, his own self study of guys that he admired, that he watched, that he finds successful in the league and what they did, and just us honestly just in like an exploration phase where we're just like, hey, we're just exploring different footwork here.
Any player in particular that you guys focused on a little bit more to watch and study for him?
Honestly, we talked a lot about Daniel because Daniel made a pretty not drastic switch, but Daniel switched up a little bit with he had McAdoo for a year, so
Right.
his footwork was very different in particular. Really, I think sometimes he just kind of leans on guys that like I work with that are around him. So like PJ Walker, and then with
Right.
Daniel Jones and just other guys. And I think obviously we're watching Aaron Rodgers, we're watching the Tom Brady's, we're watching all the guys. I don't think there's anybody that he'll say like he's like trying to mirror his game after. I think he's very comfortable in his own skin and understands that he may emulate in certain extent certain like ways of certain guys that played in the past, and obviously history repeats itself, but I don't think he's per se trying to I gotta be like
Right.
X, Y, or Z or this person. I think he's just trying to be the best Sam Howell he can possibly be.
So 3 more questions. First one, when he gets Bieniemy's playbook, or when Bieniemy's hired and he said that he went and watched the Chiefs offense, how much did you guys then work on how to marry the footwork there, or just things that he may do here? How much did you work on that?
We honestly didn't get the chance to like really dive in. I know we actually talked last night on the phone for about an hour and a half, like 11 o'clock. We're just shooting a trap about everything, just talking about life and family and little ball. Got into a little Coach Bieniemy's offense and some things he's asked to do. And I think the biggest thing that I've kind of gathered from him, and I think he's trying to like work through is like EBs, what he calls them, is I think very not I'm not saying I wouldn't say detail, but he's just not very picky on like he's like, hey, long as my quarterback makes the right read, he's not really like trying to like box these guys in. I think which I think is great because obviously nowadays, especially when it comes to quarterback, there's a million ways to skin a cat. Back in the day, it's like you had to throw it like this or do this or do that. But now it's like you got guys all different shapes, sizes, heights, weights, throwing abilities, throwing arm slots. I think that's great because just it allows guys to really maximize who they are and not put them in like, oh, you have to be this. So I think from my understanding, it just he's learning as he goes. He feels like he's done a lot of good things, but also he's done some bad things, which I told him it's going to come from reps. It's going to come from, and there's things that you may have not seen or may have not experienced that your only way you're going to get that experience is you get the live rep. You got to learn from it, and I think he's blessed with the opportunity to have an organization and that's believing in him, and obviously knowing that he's going to be a young budding star that he's going to take his lumps, but he's going to do a lot of good things to not offset, but he's going to do a lot of really, really good things that are going to make people happy and help the Commanders be successful.
One of the things Bieniemy Brown talked about was that he felt he was getting more vocal in the huddle. Is that something you guys talked about?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with Sam. Sam's always been not soft-spoken, but he's just not a loud, boisterous guy. But I think for him, being a vocal leader kind of comes with the responsibility you're given as a leader. Right. So I think last year, obviously, there's 2 veterans in the room that have big money contracts. They have a lot of experience under their belt. So obviously, they're the 1 and 2, and things are going through them. So it's kind of hard, especially as a rookie. It's kind of hard to be vocal in that moment when you have 2 other voices that kind of expect you to kind of know your role, which means like hey, like you're more of a be seen not heard type of thing. Not in a bad way, not like it's a demonstrative, right. But like it's just kind of like the pecking order. It's kind of like the unwritten law. So obviously when you're given that, not given, but when you've kind of earned and done your part over a year, and you're kind of hey, this is you're given the opportunity to prove that it should be your spot. You have to do those things and be more vocal and continue to have that presence in the locker room and around the facility. It's embraced, it's embodied, and I think it's a little more publicized when you're the guy. I mean, I'm sure this is stuff that he probably did last year, but nobody was looking at him as being the guy, right? So it wasn't as like looked at. It was just, oh, as a third string quarterback, just, but now that he's the guy, you're paying attention. You're paying attention to what he's doing every day and how he's preparing. How I've been doing this since I don't think anything for him has honestly changed because he's given this opportunity. I think it's just now people are realizing like this kid carries himself like a professional. He is a professional. He's going to do all the right things, and he's showing flashes and OTAs of a lot of promise, and people okay with more reps and more opportunities. This guy could be probably going to be our franchise quarterback.
Last things, and what's the biggest change you've seen in him, whether even from over the course of the year coming back to you and even like to this point? What's the big, even in this offseason, what's the biggest change that you've seen in him?
I think the biggest change might be his haircut, man. No, it looks good though. I told him the other day, I was like, hey man, that haircut looks good. I like that on you. No, I think the biggest change, honestly, that people may have I think he's just very conscious of his body, what he puts in his body. Obviously, he don't eat chicken.
We've heard.
yeah, that's right. I wasn't like living with him, but during the draft process, like trying to go eat places and like everything's like I'm thinking like, well, everything's got to have chicken. He only eats chicken, which I like chicken too, but yeah, he didn't like. It wasn't like he wanted to go get sushi with me or anything like that. That was always fun to manage. But I think the biggest thing that I've seen over the years with him is, and I don't think it's the biggest change, but I think it's just, in my opinion, like his continuous like humble confidence is really something that I've known for years. For years I've known it, but other people now are finally seeing it, what that looks like, what that kid in Chapel Hill did from the internal organization just knew how confident he was and how humble he was. And now that he's given this responsibility and role, people are starting to feel and figure out like, okay, like, hey man, this kid's confident as hell, man. Like this kid, he's humble, but like he's very confident in what he's doing, and he's doing a good job. And I'm proud of him, and I'm excited for the opportunity. I'll definitely be at a lot of games, rooting those guys on, and wishing the best for Sam, because he's definitely one of those guys that has worked really hard. And I don't know if there's anybody on this planet that can sit here and say like, hey man, like any success that he's had doesn't deserve it, honestly.
Anthony, I appreciate your time and your insight. Thank you.
Yes, sir, John. Thank you.
That's it for this episode. Thanks to Anthony for joining me, and thank you, as always, for tuning in. I'll be back with another episode. I believe it'll come out Thursday or Friday. So talk to you next time.